Welcome to this special hangout of Budget 2015. Our Super Saturday coverage on Taxsutra continues since morning 8:30, and what a day it has been. The Finance Minister started his speech at around 11 and continued almost till 12:30, and he's covered almost all the major aspects that the industry was hoping for, and India as a country was hoping for. Specifically on the indirect taxes, there has been a definitive announcement once again and a firm commitment to start GST from 1st April 2016. To look at the specific indirect tax related proposals that Finance Minister has proposed today, we have a special guest with us, Mr. Lakshmikumaran. Mr. Lakshmikumaran is a founding partner of Lakshmikumaran Sridharan. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us from Delhi on this special evening hangout. Sir, the Finance Minister touched upon GST, and there are 2 points that he made. One is, of course, in line with Finance Commission's recommendation of devolving more taxes to the states. And number two, he talked about 1st April 2016 as a date for GST rollout. Do you think that the law will be in place by April 2016, or you think we will be able to actually implement the law by April 2016?
They say where there is a will, there is a way. If the governments, both the center and the states, if they are committed to make India as a free trade economy and have one state-of-art taxation system called the GST, it can be done. But all the stakeholders have to necessarily work together, race against time, pass the constitutional amendments by the parliament here, go after all the there, come back. In the meantime, parallelly prepare the model legislation for the GST, both for center and the state, and also parallelly prepare the IT infrastructure, both for the center and the states, and also give sufficient time to the industry to get adjusted to the new regime. All these things, if people want to do, they can do. But if there is a slip anywhere, then the deadline of April 2016 will be a mirage.
Right, right, sir. The finance minister today spoke about, he gave a vision sort of on the tax policy, both on the direct tax side and on the indirect tax side. Do you think the budget proposals as such that we have seen otherwise, be it increasing the service tax rate to 14%, be it increasing the excise duty rate to 12.5%, changes in the SENVAT credit rules, do you think all these other proposals, especially on the indirect tax, are in the step towards GST implementation?
Disconnecting the ministry, in fact, 16, and increasing the gap between the rate of taxes between the excise duty and the service tax is not properly the proper direction, especially for the GST implementation. If we are going to have different rates of GST for goods and services, we are going to have major problems in interpretations. Quite a lot of problems with that. Government may necessarily move towards unifying the rates. It may cause some problem with regard to the increase in the rate on service tax or vice versa. But I think industry will settle down. But in order to ensure that there is minimum or no litigation on this front, it is most desirable to have uniform rate. But what I see now today is the gap between the excise duty and the service tax is widened. 12.5 and 16. And I say 16, why? Because Swachh Bharat says if you impose, whenever it is imposed, that will be 14 plus 2, that will be 16. And that is what I am worried about.
Right, appreciate. And that's a fair point. In fact, this Swachh Bharat cess of 2% on service tax did not find a specific mention. One doesn't know whether it will come on all the services. We read earlier, perhaps telecom services as being considered as uh, for levying this Swachh Bharat cess. But that's very interesting, sir. You mentioned on one hand, the government talked about Make in India and has put together a great story around Make in India. On the other hand, you actually have a situation where the service tax rate has been increased quite substantially. The excise duty has also been increased. Do you think that the changes and proposals on the indirect tax side actually will really help in supporting Make in India story?
Partially, yes. I mean, I want to be charitable to the finance minister. So when he says that I want to make the Make India program a success, he has done some exercise. He has done good homework. What he did as far as the custom duties are concerned, he took up two major problems faced by the industries in India. One is the existing inverted duty structure, where the duty on the raw material is more, the duty on the finished product manufactured here. There is no incentive for anybody to manufacture here. So he has picked up items where he found, or at least there are some representations, that there have been higher rate on the inputs and lower rate on the finished goods. He tried to reduce the duties on the inputs so that the value addition is made in India, and therefore there is an incentive for people to manufacture. That is one. The second one, which is bothering and then really troubling every manufacturer in India, especially the IT sector, is the imposition of SAT duty. The SAT duty imposition has actually taken out every enthusiasm of everybody, because with the SAT duty, when the finished goods are being charged excise duty here, you always have overflowing credit, and therefore the manufacturer has to absorb the overflowing credit into the cost. That was killing. But that has been a good measure today, where he has given the exemption for the SAT duty on all the inputs on the imported products when used in manufacture IT products in India. That exemption is given subject to the actual user condition. Now, there can be debates whether actual user conditions will ever be imposed at all on the imported side, because it puts tremendous pressure on the administration to ensure that the goods are actually being used for manufacturing. We have been hearing from the finance ministry officials in the last decade that they are moving away from the induced based exemptions, especially on the customs side and excise side, because it puts tremendous pressure on the end use. But we see 2-3 notifications of this nature here, where they are bringing in the end-use based exemptions here. Now, one is the policy, other one is the relief to the Make in India programs. I think somewhere the administration has to strike a balance. So instead of making everything as end-use based, they are making selectively. As far as the IT industry is concerned, this measure is welcome. It should at least remove the anomalies as far as the inverted duty structure and overflowing credit to a great extent. But duties alone are enough for enthusing people to start manufacturing here, or other regulatory issues and other problems in various other infrastructure, etc., will also pose a problem. This is a bigger thing with the trade facilitation measures, which are necessary for ease of importing goods. And people should be able to import and clear the cargo in 6 hours, 4 hours from the customs, not 4 days and 40 days. Now, in the procedural thing with regard to the customs clearances, and that has to be done simultaneously. If that is not done, then duty rates increasing, tinkering here, that alone is not going to enthuse people to start manufacturing in India. There are lots and lots of other things also to be taken care of.
Appreciate. So, I mean, SAD and inverted duty structure correction, I think, is clearly a big positive. There are a couple of other specific points on the administration side. Number one is they have allowed the e-invoices and also a 2-day deadline for issuing new registrations. Do you think this will go a long way in making service tax administration and compliance more friendlier?
Look, I think we are talking two things. One is regarding the e-registration within 2 days' time. It has to happen. I mean, nobody can claim credit for that. I mean, if it was taking 20 days till now, it is ashamed. This is a simple thing that I am wanting to enter the services. I want to pay service tax. I want to manufacture the goods here. It is not any other regulatory issue saying whether you can do so, they're harmful to people, etc. Excise is not concerned about that. Excise is concerned, Ameya, you are going to manufacture here, it is, take it. Are you going to enter service here? I go to service tax, etc. Welcome, take the credit. Therefore, registering it in 2 days' time, etc. If somebody is taking the credit, I think I will not appreciate it. But at least.
But it took, sir, it took almost over a decade for government to more than it's actually 2 decades since the service tax law is there, excise for years. So finally it has happened. So I think credit goes to finance minister for finally making it happen.
Of course, but now if his wish is 2 days, it will happen. But you must actually see 2 days it happens or not. That's separate. There's a big gap between what is wish, what actually going to happen. And in fact, that is not going to be a major thing. Suppose the registration takes 1 week. That's not one is going to hinder the enthusiasm of anybody. But with regard to the e-return filing, etc., is already in the process. It's also in the right way, no problem at all. And the digital signature and the invoices can be issued, etc., in the right direction. I mean, absolutely no difficulty. Yes, next question.
Right. Sir, one more aspect that FM mentioned in his speech, and then when you look at in the fine print also, is pruning of the negative list and removing of the of certain exemptions, especially on service tax. And one specific item that I observed over there is government services, and I find that very interesting. Could you elaborate on what would be the impact of this particular provision? And the second one is the services around ports and airports. I think these are the two specific exemption removals that I noted, and would like to get your comments on it.
So as far as the government services are concerned, so there are two types. One is I provide a service to government. Other one is I receive the service from the government. What they are now addressing now is service received from the government. Till now, if the government was providing a support service, that alone was taxable. Now they have said any service rendered by the government is taxable on a reverse charge basis. So the person receiving the services from the government, any services, not necessarily support services, will all taxable. And he has to pay the tax on reverse charge basis. The government will not take registration and pay tax. It will be responsibility of the service receiver, like in the case of lawyers. When a company gets the services from a lawyer, the service tax becomes payable for the legal services, but will be paid by the client. Similarly, here the service receiver has to pay the service tax. That is one. Having said that, they have given a small window of exemptions with regard to the or by the etc. So that is the pruning of that notification as far as the government services are concerned. The other one which is very important is regarding the levy of service tax on the so-called amusement, entry into amusement parks and other things.
No, so I asked about ports and airport.
Yeah, that is again an expansion that the exemptions are getting pruned therein. That is in the right direction. That's no difficulty at all. Because when you want to increase the tax base and when they want to increase the tax collections here, definitely the minister is looking at which are the place where I can pinch. I think that is fine. I mean, nobody need to shed tears on this. But the issue which will come up for, I mean, if I can go to the next point, regarding the entertainment activities and entry into that. I think the government is entering into a particular area where this state list, whether the center also can levy the tax or not. And in the earlier clarification, where they said that they are not charging on these only because it is part of the state list, but now the government seems to think that they can also tax here. So that is an interesting thing, which probably some legal battle will take place somewhere. I think probably the government must have also done their homework that in these areas there can be overlaps,
Right.
and we need to examine in great detail.
Right. Sir, you've, this is not a question on the impact, but you looked at so many provisions introduced in the budget for last many years, and many of these provisions go before the court and get challenged. Do you think any of the proposals on the indirect tax in this year's budget prima facie seem to be prone to a court challenge immediately?
Oh yes, there are quite a few. After all, lawyers community will always thank the finance minister for providing the opportunities.
But any one or two that you could immediately think of, sir?
I already told you about this, the dual tax on the entry into the amusement parks and
Right.
theaters, etc. The other one is in relation to the levy of service tax on job work basis for production or manufacture of liquors. If you manufacture on a job work basis excise goods under Excise Act, the Central Excise Act, it is not leviable to service tax. But if the production results in alcoholic liquor for human consumption, now they have said that the exemption will not apply. This has been a cat and mouse game for the past a decade. They will first exempt, then they will withdraw, again exempt, then withdraw, etc. So again withdrawing. The question ultimately would be whether where you render an activity which will amount to manufacture, and that activity will result in levy of state tax by the state governments. Can the center also can levy service tax? It's a bigger question. Again, constitutional issue will come in.
Right. Sir, another point which has been an area of significant debate is on taxability of the reimbursements and a levy of service tax on it. We saw this matter is already before some of the courts, and in the budget fine print, there has been a clarification to specifically include value of reimbursements in the value of taxable services. So your quick comments on this particular change. To me, it looked very.
Uh, Basically, the high courts have said that reimbursement should not be consideration for services, and therefore it cannot become part of it. In fact, the provision was struck down earlier. Now they are trying to do the same thing. I think the government wants to charge tax on the reimbursements. Probably they found people try to increase the reimbursements and then reduce the service charge, etc. Maybe some consideration, some unscrupulous service providers may be doing it, but that cannot be the reason for amending whole lot and then taking the reimbursement as a part and parcel of the service charges. So that again, a legal battle will continue.
Right, right. On the administration side, last few years we've seen tightening of the penalty-related provisions. This year's budget, when I first read it, I thought, the categorization of penalty into willful cases and others. I first thought it's a relief, but then it turned out to be that they have in fact widened the scope of levy of penalty. Do you think that's again worrisome on the service tax administration? Hello, hello. I think we have lost a line. We'll try and get him quickly. Uh,
I'm here. I can hear you.
yes, so sir, quick comment on the penalty related amendments.
But I think what I'm trying to say is the whole approach of the government in this regard is to reduce the litigation wherever possible and collect the taxes as much as possible, as quickly as possible. This is exactly what the original purpose of settlement commission. Now, what they are trying to do is, if they are encouraging the assessees to settle the dispute at the original level itself, instead of going to a different forum called the settlement commission. Here, they give tax in a non-fraud case before the show cause is issued. They accept the money, say goodbye to you. To say tax, but once you accept this, you can't agitate this matter further. But in the case of fraud cases where they allege suppression, etc., they say earlier you pay 25%. Now they say 15%. There is a further reduction, 85% discount on the penalty. 15% if you pay, and then you settle the matter here, then matter ends. So these are, I would say, mini settlements of the adjudication process itself, rather than the maxi ones for settlement commissions.
Right, right. So, as I said, there have been a number of provisions in this budget. So, my last question: two specific amendments for which you will give thumbs up, and two specific proposals on which you will give thumbs down, sir.
I didn't get your question, sir. Two specific?
Two specific provisions which you really liked and appreciate in this budget, and two provisions you wish FM could have not had in this budget.
Okay. Two provisions are the measures taken for Make in India for adjusting the inverted duties in the customs and also SAT duty exemption in the right direction. The abolition or absorption or subsuming of the cess, education cess into the tax like excise duties and the service tax is also in the right direction. When they subsume, and that means now we are not going to have any cess and all those things, right? We want tax to be paid 12.5% on excise and 16% on this year. Of course, 4 plus 2, one more cess comes in separately. So these are the welcome measures. And I would say that as far as, and also the penalty classes being pruned is also one of the welcome measures so that litigation comes to an end and the government can see the color of the coin faster and quicker. As far as the proposal which probably could have avoided in this is, for example, in the all government services getting taxed and the reverse charge mechanism. That one. The second is regarding the liquor, where the manufacturer, if it results in manufacture of liquor, you will be charged with service tax. This again is not in the right direction because we are actually confronting the states and saying the state powers you whether there is a overlap or encroachment, etc. These are the questions which we could have avoided because the revenue you are going to get out of that is not going to be big because the manufacturing and job work basis there, the job workers are paid not very much. But then states are collecting full taxes on the state taxes. And when the government is talking about devolving so much of revenue to the states and also prepared to pay the compensation on the GST losses to go and tinker the particular direction, they are taking one step backwards.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Mr. Lakshmikumaran, for your insights. Yeah, it's been a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you so much for our audience for watching this special show. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.